What's happening, everybody? Nick Olson, Chupacabra Off-Road, back in the desert, back in El Centro at Andrew's house. And it's been a long time since we had an update on the race car. Andrew's been working on this thing hard since our last race at the end of January, and we're using this downtime to make some upgrades so we can be more competitive, have a better car. I think the theme of this is the car looked really pretty on the outside, but we had a lot of internal changes that we felt like we wanted to make. Not only to make it, I want to say pretty on the inside, but faster, more reliable, less risk, and all that type of thing. So
make this car competitive.
We'll start off with kind of the little stuff. Andrew, starting off, installed a new Lone Star front motor mount, chromoly. Heard a lot of things over the years of people breaking the OEM stuff. Didn't have any issues with it before, but if we spend more money, get a nice chromoly piece, chances are we're not going to have to deal with that in the future. Nope. One thing that affects pretty much everybody is hitting hard bumps, so we got this beefier Lone Star plate just to prevent the whole back end from getting tweaked. No matter what we do, you're definitely going to hit stuff hard when you're going through deep whoops and you're pushing it at race pace. So
protects the bottom of the transmission, keeps it from cracking the cases.
Yeah, Andrew did a nice job welding it in, covered it with Steelite, and as you can see, the transmission's missing, but we'll get to that in a second. To go back a little bit in the story, after our last race, we were having some heating issues. So I took the vehicle back from Pastor City here back to Arizona, and Brent at American Engineering, first off, created a new intake for the CVT belt, of course, but then what's kind of hard to see is the radiator's been moved a little bit. So one issue that we had when the original car was put together was getting fuel in it efficiently was not good. But we had to move the radiator. We moved it up and out to get more airflow. So we're actually going to go testing with Mark Queen from Queen Racing. We just know he's a bit of a guru. Some of our friends highly recommend him. We actually got a new ECU tune from Queen, so we're done with our old tuner who caused us a lot of issues, unfortunately. So got that tune, Andrew, but I was thinking we'd kind of run the car with the current tune since it's fine, and then we could probably plug the tune in after we get the whole car running. So our idea, believe it or not, is to get this thing put back together here tonight and then go run it tomorrow and see how she does. And we're hoping after all these changes, the last thing we have to really worry about is the cooling. So that's one thing that hopefully Mark Queen can help us dial in, is that, as well as the clutching. So like I said, took it back to Arizona, adjust the arrangement. Hopefully we're gonna have some cooler temps. You know, our seats are pretty big. They definitely block up a lot of potential airflow. You know, we could go with new seats. This is a big radiator though, so we're hoping we can get things sorted out. We don't have to deal with changing the radiator. We might even do a new oil cooler remote. So got that set up, and then moving on to the shocks real quick. If you guys watch the channel, Wayne at Alltech, we had a really good day. We had an awesome video, one of my favorite videos that we've made, tuning the shocks, and we had a lot of success with the upgrades that we did that day, but then we sent them back. Actually, Andrew got them up there for us. Thank you, Andrew, to Temecula, and Wayne fully rebuilt them, replaced all the internal components that were wore down, and installed high and low compression clickers. So now we got a little bit more tuning. After he went through them, the race we did, we're going through some slow, choppy stuff and still bottoming the car out. So we have the settings basically set exactly to how he had them, with the ride height, with the crossover rings. But now we've got this extra tunability. We can probably get a little bit more ramp up as we learn how to drive faster, go faster, hit stuff harder. We're probably going to bottom. So shocks are all completely dialed now, correct spring rates, tuned to this car with the guru himself. And that aspect is hopefully the last thing I have to worry about for quite a while. And then one thing that was a huge change that Andrew did is an amazing wiring job. And you'll notice that we have the dash completely, not completely changed, but updated. Thank you, Switch Pros. Hooked us up with a nice price on a new SP9100. And Andrew got it all dialed in, clean, and we're running a new AIM belt temp sensor that we're about to install in the new transmission here. So we had some issues. You can see over here we have a 4-wheel drive switch, which we didn't used to have. Basically what happened is, dating back to almost a year ago, this thing was not getting engaging in 4-wheel drive. It's like we were getting 9 volts to the front, and took it to a couple experts. No one could figure it out. So for our last 2 races, we hardwired it, but of course we wanted to put it on a switch. So
you can turn it on and off and be able to use it. So if you ever drive on the road, you don't grenade your front diff.
Yeah, so Andrew wired that up, and more importantly, got all the switches set up. So listen to our friends that are smart and way faster than us. Randy Romo. Randy runs Switch Pro. Hasn't had any issues, and over 5,000 race miles.
We have them in the Tube Turbo Twins as well. Haven't had any issues with them in there, so we decided to put one in the race car.
Yeah, so now it's much cleaner. All set up. Got the switches set up exactly how we need them. You guys might have noticed, I don't know if we did an update, but we did switch out the rigid adapt light bar. Had a huge draw on it. Switched to a Baja Designs light bar. Baja Designs has been a company that's really helped us out and had our back. So we wanted to make sure that all of our vehicles are running Baja Designs lights. So on the front, you can't see them yet, but we got some new LP4s coming off of back order. Hopefully they'll fit. Andrew might do a little fab work to move them around, but they might tuck right in there. But we're running full Baja D, and as that relates to wiring, over here in the back of the car, Andrew installed
Your rear light bar?
the Baja Designs rear light bar. So we get to our first race in Laughlin, we don't have brake lights that work. And we didn't have the KC blue light, which we thought we needed. Now 100%, in fact, we know we need it to be best in the desert legal. So Andrew got some clean little clamps, or Axia clamps.
Axia clamps.
So we're trying to waffle over where do we put this thing so it's not, it's visible, but it's not in the way. Hopefully it doesn't take away too much of that rear side vision that I had a little bit when we were racing. But we can move it around if we change our mind. So how to have it visible, of course, to pass contingent or spec or contingency. So there are lots of upgrades basically, and combine this with Andrew's beautiful wiring job, Switch Pro. We feel like now, electrically speaking, we should be really good to go. Got a lower draw on our light bar. Not gonna really need our lights for a lot of the races we have coming up planned. So we got some covers to keep her looking pretty. And the front of the car is looking dialed. Speaking of Andrew, co-rider spot. Few races. Andrew had nowhere to really kind of brace himself. As you can see, he doesn't have a oh crap handle here on the right. We try to think about getting in and out of the car swiftly, not having something that's in the way. I like the idea of a mount just because when I do passenger ride in my RZR, I like having something to hold on to. But being all braced in, Andrew did install a left foot little rear brace from, foot brace from CarTech, along with some grip tape. So I got the little brace for my left foot for the driver's side. So just cleaning up a lot of things, just stuff that we didn't really think it was going to be an issue, but since we've had this downtime, like I said, I mean, we've got it all, in our opinion, a lot more sorted out. Heard good things about this AIM belt gauge. Got a lot of data that it can take.
The gauges. Gauges.
Gauges.
Hit it. Yeah, hit it. Hit it.
No,
like the gauges on the Switch Pros. Gauges.
Oh.
That's going to be your belt temperature gauge.
There you go.
It's pretty cool. Gives you your battery voltage. Once the sensor's installed on the actual AIM gauge, it will give you your infrared, and then on top of that will give you your battery voltage. So what's really cool, if you're in a racing aspect and you're running two of these gauges, you can hook one up to one battery, the other up to the other battery, and you have battery voltage gauge on your car for both batteries, which is really cool. So, but yeah, Switch Pros AIM temperature gauge. We do have the one that runs on the race pack. Also, we're going to be installing, so we have two of them. Yeah, so speaking of belt temp, obviously we had a belt temp gauge here from the UTV race pack, but we didn't really know where a belt blew, and technically we never blew a belt. We had one that was pretty chunked out after the last race, but we have some clutching issues. We got passed by an RS1 on a straightaway. Yeah, they're a lot lighter than us, but that's something we're going to work on, but we definitely know we need more precise data. That's something we essentially going to have to live off of, and we can only push this thing as hard as the belt's going to allow us to go in terms of temperature. So as that leads to our next segue, we have new heart and soul of this thing going in. This is the new transmission out of the XP Pro XP, the old one, which is a 17 turbo, and here's the new Pro XP, which we purchased off of a RZR. So RZR had only a couple races on it. We heard good things from our friends at Race. Higher top miles per hour, and most importantly, more than 50 degrees lower belt temps. And the Polaris got 1 and 2 at the Mint 400. So these Can-Ams are super fast, and I think this is probably, sounds like from what the fast racers we talked to, what Polaris needed to do, what Polaris racers need to do. And not that, I'm fast enough as a driver to get a top 5 of the best in desert, hopefully one day, but if we're going to go racing,
let's be as competitive as we can be. So got the transmission used, paid a guy to go through it, check out all the bearings. These have higher quality bearings than what comes on the older transmissions. He said the transmission looked great. Put some 75 by 140. For all you Can-Am guys are gonna love this. I'm actually running Can-Am gear oil.
Pretty much the same thing as the oil.
Yeah, so 2 full quarts of it, and you know, I think ironically this whole new setup runs the same belt, which is cool because that is a little pile of belts from the turbo. So I'm really feeling like, you know, we're really starting to cross off a lot of boxes. We're gonna, like I said, get this thing all buttoned up, and we're hoping for a lot lower belt temps. Now we just need to make sure we figure out the cooling as it works to the new with the new ECU tune from Queen, and that will be a later video when we go test with him. But as you can see, we got some work in front of us, so we are going to get this thing together and start cracking on it and see if we can get this thing fired up hopefully tonight. All right, good morning, day 2, back at it, and got the Pro XP clutch all installed. So thanks to Aftermarket Assassins for the YouTube videos, a couple little tips. Got the torque specs, 140 foot-pounds for the front,
35 to 40 on the rear secondary.
Yep, uses the same belt as we're running with the stock Pro XP weights, which are 112 gram weights. We're not going to do any weight tuning. We haven't done that yet. We're going to work with our tuner when we get that going, but sounds good. Car is running good. Our biggest question was the belt sensor. So we've got 2 belt temp sensors, like we mentioned, one from the race pack dash, and then the other, which is one we installed, the AIM. Well, if you look at it up here at the very front, this is where we've always had our race pack, and it always feels like the adjustment, the numbers have been wrong. They've been higher than 300, 350 degrees without the belt braking. So we put them up top here, but as you can see, now you've got this inner plastic part that's probably going to throw that off. And that's probably what keeps the belt so much cooler with the Pro XP. So we're gonna have to move it around. We're gonna just run it for today and see where we land. So gonna learn. It's interesting, this has got 10 little tiny shims here in the secondary, so it seems like there's a lot of micro adjustment for getting the clutch
started in a higher gear. A lot more belt tension up in the lower gear.
Yeah, so we're gonna put it back on, take her around the block, and then take her out to the desert. right, so XP Pro Trans is in, the car is running, the car is going to go back onto the trailer in its own weight. Pretty good so far?
So far so good. Pulls down low, pulls up in the mid-range. Still having a little bit of clutch issue tuning wise, still not able to really get over 70 miles an hour. Another little thing that we found, we're having a lot of oil come out of the breather, of the crankcase breather, going up and into the intake and then into the turbo, coming out the blow-off valve through the blow-off valve filter. So we're not going to run the car anymore today. We're kind of not scary, but we just want to make sure it's not hurting the car any.
Yeah, you know, it's hard for us to diagnose that out here in the field. It is a little nerve-wracking. The last race we did, Andrew pulled the car apart. There was a little bit of oil. Maybe this issue has nothing to do with the new trans, but it's a separate issue.
Yeah.
It's good that we uncovered it. We got the car. We kind of cruised behind. I cruised behind Andrew, getting loosened up in his new X3. You know, make sure the belt was warmed up and all that. Ran it hard in a wash. You know, and got it pretty warm. Our two different belt gauges too, we need to address that because our aim is definitely pointing at that plastic piece like we thought. The temperatures are off by like 60 degrees of one belt gauge versus the other.
Yep.
Like Andrew's saying, the clutches might not be aligned properly. This is kind of out of our pay grade, why we're gonna look out to somebody who does this all the time with race cars so they can help us. So again, we learned. Car did really well. Shocks back from Wayne Israelson. Felt really good. I came out with something really hard. I thought we'd get closer to bottoming and we didn't. Everything still feels pretty good and tight. Andrew feels like the steering box has a little bit of slop.
Yeah, starting to get a little loose in the steering box that we get up. We had a lot of play in the steering at Rage at the River. We addressed it. We found a little bolt on the actual the steering shaft going into the steering rack was loose, so causing a lot of play there. Tightened it up. It caused it to get a little tight, but it's starting to come back a little bit sloppy again. But other than that, car feels tight. Car suspension works really well. We ran the same whoops that we were running with Wayne when we were testing, and I could hardly get it to bottom out. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. So a couple little things to think about. So we got some downtime. We'll keep working at it. So when we get to the starting line of our next race, we will hopefully have the stuff behind us, and looking forward to going faster. So. Thanks for watching, guys. The quest goes on. Build this thing reliable and fast so we can get to the finish line here with a really good result. If you guys like the content, please like and subscribe, and we've got a lot more coming your way.
Another Chupacabra sighting.